Greetings, hello, and welcome back to Cruising Alaska Tips from my journey. I went on an Alaskan 7-day cruise. I've been back for a couple weeks now. I learned some things, and in this video, we're going to talk about air travel tips for cruise passengers. So here's our outline. We're just going to go through these one at a time, and I'm going to give you all the good stuff that I come away with that I possibly can. So first up, booking flights. Fly in a day early to avoid missed embarkation. I would highly recommend this. Not only will it give you a little bit of peace of mind that if your flight is delayed and you're worried about getting on your cruise ship, but also you get to explore potentially a new city. And that's exactly what we did. We flew into Seattle for our 7-day Carnival cruise. And we flew in, we left Kansas City International Airport at 3:30. That's when our flight left. And we got to Seattle at 5:30 their time because you actually gain 2 hours when you go out there. So that's cool going out there. Not as cool when you come back. So we landed at 5:30. One thing that I think that I would do differently if I did this in the future is that I would have my flight get to Seattle a little bit earlier, because I thought in my mind, we'll land at 5:30, we'll be out of the airport by 6:30, we can get to our Airbnb, we can get some dinner, and life will be good. Well, we did that, but we didn't wind up getting dinner until about 8:30, and by then we were hangry. We are a hungry people, and we get hangry if we don't eat whenever we're supposed to eat. So I would probably maybe have my flight come in around 2. 2 would be pretty good, and that way you could get through the airport, get to wherever you're going, and then figure out what you're going to do for dinner and avoid the hangry time. But definitely fly in a day early. We spent the next day exploring Seattle, and then our cruise didn't leave until the next day. So we had 2 nights in Seattle. That was great, other than flying in a little bit late. But yeah, take some time, explore Seattle. Seattle's awesome. Really like that city a lot. We saw just a slice of it, and I really liked it, and it was enough where I was like, man, I want to go back there and see some more of it. It's a cool city. I do recommend it. Next on our list to cover is luggage considerations, airline versus cruise baggage rules, because there's going to be different fees and rules and exceptions for every single airline, for every single cruise line. So what I would recommend doing is using your friend ChatGPT and doing a little search. So my prompt was, what are the baggage rules for Alaska Airlines and Carnival Cruise Line? If you've never used ChatGPT, I'll kind of show you how it works. The website's chatgpt.com. You're going to get a little box where you can type in whatever you want. My prompt is, what are the baggage rules for Alaska Airlines, because that's the airline that I chose to fly with, and Carnival Cruise Line. I'd never flown Alaska Airlines before. We chose it because it departed Kansas City, and it was a nonstop flight from Kansas City to Seattle, both going there and coming back, and our ticket, $275 per person for a round-trip ticket from Kansas City to Seattle. It's like 2,200 miles to drive it. It would have been like probably over 2 days of driving. We got there and back for $275 per person. Now, granted, that does not include your baggage, so let's discuss that. On Alaska Airlines, you can carry on one suitcase and a personal item. So I had a carry-on rollable suitcase that was this exact measurement, 22 by 14 by 9. That's the maximum measurement for a carry-on luggage. And I had a backpack. Alaska does not specify a weight limit for carry-on, so as long as you can get it into the overhead bin without assistance, you can pack that carry-on as much as you want. However, for their checked bags, they limit it to 50 pounds. I loaded up this gigantic suitcase, and it can't be more than 62 linear inches for size, so length plus width plus height. It's a big suitcase, and I loaded it up as much as I possibly could, and it was only 37 pounds, so it shouldn't be difficult to stay under that 50-pound weight limit. Now, then you get into fees. So if you check a bag with Alaska, it's going to cost you $35 for that first bag. If you check 2 bags, then it goes up to $45, and if you check 3 bags, it's $150 each. Wow. So one thing that I mentioned in the previous video that I would do differently now is a 7-day cruise, and Carnival recommends right here as a guideline, they suggest 1 bag per person for cruises of 3 to 5 nights and no more than 2 bags for longer cruises. So I thought, oh, well, we're going on a 7-day cruise. Carnival says we need 2 bags. I would do that a little bit differently. I would still bring my large suitcase, but I would just go into it knowing that I'm going to do laundry while I'm on the Carnival cruise ship. They only charge $15 for a load of laundry. You turn it into them. They bring it back to you the next day. It's no big thing at all, and I think that will save a lot of time, effort, energy, because really the difficult part, I was traveling with my parents who are in their like mid-60s now at this point, and so mobility is a bit of an issue here and there. And so to have each of them with 2 suitcases and a personal item, that was a lot for them. I could manage. It was fine for me, but my parents struggled a little bit with 2 suitcases and a personal item, so we all said that the biggest thing that we would do differently is that we would do 1 suitcase per person. We would check that piece of luggage. We would pay the $35 to have them take care of that for us. And we would take a personal item and we would just be good with that, knowing that maybe, we don't have clothing for 10 days because that's the total amount of time we were gone for the trip. Wouldn't have clothing for 10 days, but just with the thought that we would be taking advantage of laundry services. So if you do go overweight, it's an additional $100, so you definitely want to make sure that you're not over 50 pounds on that checked bag with Alaska. And then when you look at Carnival, they don't have a strict limit on the number of bags you bring. Bring as many bags as you want, but if you're flying, you might want to think about that. And also, you might want to think about how difficult or easy is it to get into the cruise terminal with all of your bags and take them where they need to go. Drop off whenever it was embarkation day, meaning the ship was leaving. Drop off was really easy. We took a taxi or an Uber service from our Airbnb to the cruise terminal, and as soon as we got out of the car, there was somebody there with a luggage rack that took our luggage, so we didn't have to manage that at all. That was beautiful. That was lovely. But if you're going through an airport, you're not going to have probably the same experience. They don't have curbside baggage pickup at Kansas City International, at least not what I saw, and at least not what I was willing to pay. So we had to bring our bags inside. We had to go up escalators and down escalators and go to the terminal where we could actually pay for our luggage, check it in, and then we could depart with it from that. So one thing that I would mention that I hope that Carnival improves upon in the future is that you're going to get luggage tags with your ticket that you have to print out before you get to the cruise terminal. Now, my mom, she misplaced one of her boarding pass. She misplaced her boarding pass. She accidentally put it in her suitcase, or so she thought, but she did actually have it on her. She just couldn't find it. They can print out stuff for you on the fly there. It was not a big deal, but Carnival wants you to print out luggage tags and go ahead and attach those to your suitcases ahead of time. So that's something to consider and to be aware of whenever you are cruising, at least with Carnival, that you have to print out your luggage tag and get those attached before you arrive at the cruise terminal. Because again, as soon as we got out of our Uber at the cruise terminal, they took our bags and they were gone. That was it. So that was kind of nice. But if you didn't have your luggage tags printed out, obviously you couldn't do that, and that would be difficult. Okay, tip number 3, airport navigation tips for seniors. I think if you asked my mom and dad what their tips for navigating an airport would be to go with your younger son or daughter and have them just kind of lead the way. The Kansas City International Airport is wonderful. This is the first time that I have been there since they've remodeled it. And it's great. It's a very easy to navigate terminal. I think we only had to go up maybe 1 escalator in total, and that was great. And then the actual terminals where you go and go to the gates, it's basically 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. So it's super easy to navigate. You just kind of are aware of your surroundings, and everything is very clearly labeled up in the sky, and you can check your boarding pass using your phone. Let me see if I can still access my boarding pass and show you what that looks like. Perfect, there we go. So that there is my boarding pass. I just took a screenshot of my phone. This kind of blew my parents' mind, and I was confused about it as well. You can get your boarding pass, I think it's like 24 hours before your flight boards. And so you'll just get an email that says, hey, get your boarding pass. You click a button in there and you can add it to your phone's wallet. I use an iPhone, so that's kind of why it looks like this. It might look a little bit different from yours if you have an Android. But this is your boarding pass, and this is the first time I'd ever experienced a non-paper boarding pass. The beauty of this is that you don't have to get in line and wait for your boarding pass to be printed out. If you're not checking a bag, you've got your boarding pass, you can go directly to security, you're ready to go. I didn't realize that this was my boarding pass. I thought that this was the thing that I would use in order to get my luggage tag. which it was. I went up to this little machine with my luggage, and I scanned it, and it printed out the tags for my luggage, and then I just turned my bag over to the folks there at the counter, and that was it. Then I needed to go to security, but I did that, and then I went to security, and the lady was like, "Hey, where's your boarding pass?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't have one." She's like, "Well, you need to go get one." And then I started walking back that direction. I was like, wait a minute. Maybe that thing on my phone was my boarding pass, and lo and behold, it was. It doesn't say boarding pass anywhere on there, but that's your boarding pass. So you've got that. It's ready to go, and that was confusing, but now I know. Some of you out there are probably like, duh, Ronnie, duh. And, yes, very much so. Duh, Ronnie, duh. Other navigation tips, just go slow. Don't get in a rush. Don't get frustrated. Do the thing where you arrive at least 2 hours before your flight boards. So this one boarded at 1:21. Get there at 11:21. Give yourself plenty of time. Parking at Kansas City International Airport is really, really good too, I think. They've got lots of different options. We went with the economy lot, and that was perfectly fine. There was no issues with that at all for me. We paid, I think it was $9 a day to park in the economy lot. And basically you park in this giant 15,000 space parking lot, and they send shuttles about every 10-15 minutes around to these different terminals. They pick you up, they take you directly to the front door of the airport. It's easy. It's not a big deal. So if you don't have a ride to the airport, don't sweat it. Use economy. They also have covered garage parking. They also have a lot right next to the garage, so you could just walk from the airport in. Of course, all of those are going to have different pricings attached to them. So I'll add all of that stuff on the screen as I'm talking about it, probably. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. Just don't get frustrated. Take your time. Stress-free. They did wind up losing our luggage on the way out to Seattle, and that brings me back to the point of give yourself an extra day. Don't fly in on the same day that you're going to leave on your cruise, because if we did that, our luggage would have got left behind. Our luggage wound up showing up the next day at like 9 a.m. and they just delivered it directly to our Airbnb. So it was no big deal at all, really. But maybe another tip there is that if you're going to check a bag, make sure that maybe the only stuff that is in there is the stuff that's for your cruise, and maybe put like your essentials, stuff you don't want to lose, stuff that you need for the day in Seattle, for example. Put that stuff in your personal item or your carry-on bag. That's what I did, so I was fine. Dad had basically everything that he needed other than a toothbrush. Mom had pretty much everything that she needed as well with her carry-on. So we were okay. It was not a big deal. It was a little bit inconvenient. It was a little bit stressful there for a minute, but ultimately it was all right. All right, last thing we want to talk about, saving money on flights. So $275 to fly from Kansas City to Seattle and back again. That seems crazy cheap to me. And the way that I accomplished this was I booked the flight fairly early. All right, so here is a screenshot from the confirmation that I got for my purchase. The airline flight was purchased on Monday, June 2nd. So July, August, September, about 3 months in advance, and we flew in on a Tuesday. So I think that's another tip, is probably to try and fly in the middle of the week if you can. There were several different flight options throughout the day. We thought that this one would maybe be the best because we'd fly in and again we'd be able to get dinner. That didn't work out. So your miles may vary on the time of day that you fly in, but definitely flying middle of the week, trying to do it as far in advance as you possibly can. It's definitely a roll of the dice. We did wind up purchasing travel insurance, which was only $65 for all three of us. We felt like that was very inexpensive and allowed our about $800 and something flight for all three of us to be refunded if anything came up. So that was just an option that came up as we were going through the purchasing of the flight option. So it just said, hey, do you want to insure your flight? We said, yes, $65. That sounds like a no-brainer. And they sent us all the information for that. Seat selection on Alaska, you could pick your seat if you wanted to, but that would cost you extra money. We just said throw us in there wherever you want to put us. As long as you get us from A to B, we're happy with that. And so there's no additional charge for that. My dad was really jonesing for the first class seats because there's only two next to each other and they're nice and wide and you get extra leg room. And so whenever we got to Seattle, we were like, well, what is that going to cost? Would it be worth it on a 3-hour flight? It was an extra $800 per seat. to get first class. So we were like, I'm good. We flew on a Boeing 737, and it had three rows of three seats next to each other. So we sat next to each other. That was great. No problems there. We didn't have to sit by any random stinky people. That was great. TSA pre-check, I was jonesing about this in the airport because the TSA pre-check to go through security was super short, and I wanted to look into that, and I forgot to do that until now. So of course I went back to chat and I said, how do you get TSA pre-check? So you can go to the website, TSA pre-check website, you fill out an application, and then you have to do an in-person appointment. You pay $78, covers you for 5 years of flying, and then you get approved. And so with the TSA pre-check, shorter security lines, we didn't have to take off our shoes. I think they changed that here recently. Leave laptops and liquids in your bag. Just making the whole security process much easier, much faster, much quicker. I think that would definitely be worth it if you fly even somewhat frequently. That thing's good for 5 years. That would probably save you, I would guess, because the security was not super busy when we were there, but the line for TSA pre-check was basically non-existent. So it probably would have saved us 20 minutes just doing that. 20 minutes over 5 years, if you fly a couple times a year, that kind of adds up. It seems like it's worth it. Mobility assistance. This is another one that if I had it to do over again, I would certainly look into getting mobility assistance for at least my mom. She got really, tired. She was fatigued after a day of waiting and traveling and sitting. And whenever we were departing the cruise ship, I requested wheelchair service to help her out. And man, that was like the biggest cheat code ever. One, she had COVID, so she was sick. And two, I knew her mobility, it was going to make for a really long day with her being sick. She's had a knee replacement. So there's lots of physical issues that really added up to me asking for that service, and Carnival provided it free of charge. And it was amazing because they sent somebody to our room, they picked her up. We actually kind of skipped the line for everybody that was debarking the cruise ship, and we got right off the ship. It was incredible service. Carnival certainly earned a lot of stars in my book for that one. But if I had to do it over again, I would look to get the same service at the airports, especially at Seattle. Seattle's kind of a crazy airport. You got to go up escalators and down escalators and get on trains and all this different stuff. And they had folks that were hired there that were wheeling people around in wheelchairs that had mobility issues. So we fly again. We go to an airport like Seattle. I'm looking into something like that. Kansas City, it was okay. She did great with Kansas City, but Seattle's a little bit different, kind of a monster, level of monster. So that's going to wrap up video number 2 for our Cruising Alaska tips for air travel and cruise passengers. Hope that you enjoyed that. Hope you're doing well. And as always, I hope now you're more tech-wise.